For decades, India's industrial landscape followed a predictable hierarchy. If you wanted to build a factory, you went to Maharashtra, Gujarat, or Tamil Nadu. But the latest data shows new players are beginning to crowd into that space. This chart tracks announced fresh investments nationwide. In fiscal year 2024, the total stood at 35.2 trillion rupees. By fiscal 2026, it spikes to 58.3 trillion rupees. That is a 65% surge in just 3 years. State spending isn't driving this boom. 7 out of every 10 rupees announced in this recent wave comes directly from private promoters, both domestic and foreign. This private capital is targeting sunrise sectors. We are seeing massive allocations for green hydrogen plants, semiconductor fabrication, and data centers, operations that require significant power grids and acres of physical space. These new-age facilities are being built alongside traditional, capital-intensive heavyweights like steel, aluminum, and petrochemicals, which continue to anchor the nation's baseline infrastructure demand. Because these projects demand immense physical footprints and raw power, capital is no longer restricted to legacy coastal hubs. It is searching for the path of least resistance, driving a geographic decentralization of the industrial base. Look at this line chart tracking state rankings for fresh investments. The dark red line is Andhra Pradesh. In FY24, it sat in 9th place, with 1.06 trillion rupees in announcements. By FY26, it surges to 2nd place, securing 8.95 trillion rupees and trailing only Maharashtra. Look right behind it. Rajasthan moves from 8th place to 3rd. Its investment announcements quadrupled in a single year, jumping another 14% by FY26. Madhya Pradesh, historically a peripheral player in industrial capital, maintains a steady climb, moving from 10th place in FY24 to hold the 7th position in FY25 and FY26. Uttar Pradesh has also entered the top tier, leveraging an infrastructure-led agenda to secure major projects in electronics, defense production, and mobile manufacturing. These trillion-rupee figures clearly show a willingness to explore new territory. The question is whether these announcements represent concrete physical development or if the initial data is hiding a structural illusion. The old guard hasn't disappeared. Maharashtra maintained the undisputed #1 position throughout this period. It capped FY26 with a record $11.05 trillion haul, proving that established financial and urban centers still command immense capital. Gujarat's slip to 4th place is largely optical. The state actually grew its megaproject count from 95 to 117. It only lost rank because the challenger states experienced hyper-aggressive growth rates. Tamil Nadu, however, shows signs of actual friction. It completely dropped out of the top 10 in FY25 before barely scraping back into the 10th spot a year later. Total investment volume remains heavily concentrated at the top. The top 10 states still capture roughly 80% of the total value, but the fierce competition from the middle of the pack is forcing every government to rethink how they court developers. For a multi-billion-dollar project, cheap labor and upfront subsidies offer little value if a facility is delayed by 3 years. Capital seeks process certainty over financial incentives. Andhra Pradesh pulled in tech mega investments from Google and Reliance worth trillions. They did this by explicitly guaranteeing uninterrupted power grids and rapid implementation speeds, rather than relying solely on tax breaks. Currently, the state is developing a unified digital clearance system, a single-window portal designed to process everything from small shops to massive data centers, drastically cutting down clearance times. Chhattisgarh is tackling the problem through legislation. They recently implemented the Ease of Doing Business Act 2026 and the Jan Vishwas Act, targeting the regulatory maze itself. This diagram illustrates how the new framework operates. They decriminalized hundreds of minor business offenses. More importantly, they introduced a risk-based regime where low-risk enterprises receive deemed approvals that automatically clear if regulators miss a deadline. When a company plans a 5-year construction timeline, predictable regulatory frameworks reduce risk. A guaranteed start date offers a higher long-term return than any upfront incentive. Signing a memorandum of understanding generates a headline, but an MOU is just a promise. Clearing land, securing water rights, and actually pouring concrete is where the real economy operates. To measure this ground-level bureaucratic execution, we have to look at NITI Aayog's new Investment Friendliness Index. It evaluates how states handle infrastructure, regulations, and institutional environments. This scatter plot compares a state's announced investment rank against its actual readiness rank. The gap is severe. Andhra Pradesh is second in announced value, but ranks 8th in friendliness. Uttar Pradesh is 9th in value, but sits at 19th in readiness. Now look at the traditional giants. Gujarat, Maharashtra, and Tamil Nadu are clustered right here. They continue to dominate the top spots of the readiness index because their institutional infrastructure is already built. Even so, out of a possible 100 points on the NITI Aayog index, not a single Indian state scored above 60. Gujarat topped the list with just 56.6. Bureaucratic friction remains a systemic hurdle across the entire country. We can see the ultimate effect of this friction when we move past domestic announcements and track actual, realized foreign direct investment inflows. This funnel tracks how broad announcements filter down to realize a capital. Out of all the foreign cash actually landing in the country, 85% flows directly into just 5 states: Maharashtra, Karnataka, Gujarat, Delhi, and Tamil Nadu. The challengers are making progress. Andhra Pradesh recently recorded its highest ever FDI inflow at over $600 million. But that volume is still a fraction of the capital continually pouring into the established hubs. A state's GDP is not determined by paper agreements. It expands through operating assembly lines, wages paid to active workers, and finished goods leaving the factory floor. The ultimate test of these capital investments is whether they can translate raw materials into export volume and successfully integrate into global supply chains. India's investment map is widening. The monopoly of the legacy coasts is facing real competition. But the ultimate victors won't be the states that hold the largest press conferences. They will be the ones that can execute, bridging the gap between a press release and an operational industrial ecosystem.